president and his lawyers here in D.C.?
I don't recall that.
Okay. And was any of that a distraction?
It wasn't a distraction from us because, as you said, that case had nothing to do with our case.
Okay. There were a number of times that I believe Jay Bratt took the position that the president ought to go get some more lawyers. Like if Todd Blanche and John Lauro, if they can't handle all these cases, they should just go find different attorneys for President Trump. Were you aware of that statement by Mr. Bratt?
What context was that?
Before the court in D.C. and Florida. Actually, Mr. Bratt was in Florida.
Yeah, I don't think Mr. Bratt appeared in court in D.C.
In Florida, I'm sorry.
If you could direct me to specifically what he said, as I sit here now, I don't
Okay.
recall that, but I'm not denying that happened.
Maybe we'll revisit that, but we can point you to.
Sure.
But you would certainly agree that the president gets to pick who his lawyers are, and if he wants to have Todd Blanche and John Lauro and not others, that's something that the government ought to be able to work with, correct?
Sure, although, I not this case, but other cases, I've seen judges say that if you're going to pick lawyers because they're unavailable, that you can't do that. And if
Well, that wasn't the case here.
Well, if you're picking lawyers because they, that will allow you to sort of delay the case,
Right.
that's not something that judges usually put up with.
But President Trump, nobody from big law would represent him. Isn't that a pretty well-established case?
I don't know that.
And like Mr. Blanche had to leave his firm to take on the representation?
I know he chose to leave his firm. I don't know the circumstances behind that.
Maybe it comes as a surprise to you, but there are, really two different Washingtons when it comes to lawyers. And, big law downtown just does not, have a great appetite for hiring former, Trump alumni, lawyers that worked in the Trump administration with, Republicans generally. Are you aware of that?
I have not worked in big law. I've been a public servant my whole career.
Right.
That's the world I know.
Right. Okay. By contrast, the lawyers on the January 6th committee, they leave the Hill one day and they're immediately gobbled up by big law very quickly. That just doesn't happen with Republicans. Would you agree?
That Republicans don't get jobs as lawyers? I'm sorry.
At big law firms.
I don't actually know that that's true. Again, this isn't a world I have worked in, but I think there are Republicans at big law firms.
Okay. Republicans that represented Donald Trump zealously?
I haven't kept track of that, but you'd said Republicans at law firms, so.
Okay. When your office filed its proposed DC schedule in August of 2023, were you aware that your office also had a concurrent schedule, operating in the Southern District of Florida? You essentially had two cases going at once.
Correct.
And so how did you deconflict those scheduling appearances?
Well, there were two separate groups of lawyers working on those cases, one in the classified documents case, one in the investigations case.
Was that the case for President Trump?
I'm sorry?
Was that the case for President Trump as well?
I'm trying to recall. I know John Lauro, who I think was the lead counsel in the Washington, D.C. case. I don't believe he had any involvement in the Florida case, and I know Christopher Keiss, I think was his name, was in the Florida case and didn't have any involvement here. I don't know.
Okay.
Also, I should say, I don't know how many lawyers supporting the lawyers in court President Trump had that were supporting one case or the other case.
In February of 2024, your office proposed an April hearing in the Southern District of Florida. At the time, you were aware that President Trump was scheduled for a full-day jury trial proceedings in New York on April 1st, 2nd, and 4th. So your proposal required the president to attend trial in New York on April 1st and 2nd, travel to Florida for a hearing on April 3rd, and return to New York for trial on April 4th. Do you recall that type of extraordinary logistics the president was put through?
Can you say that back to me? I just didn't, you said some dates in the beginning, if I could just hear it again.
On February 29th, 2024, your office proposed an April 3rd hearing in the Florida case.
Okay.
At the time, President Trump was scheduled for, full-day jury trial in New York on April 1st, 2nd, and 4th. So you picked the 3rd, the one day that he had off from trial. Does that ring any bells as we refresh you about that?
It doesn't ring bells, but I want to be clear, I'm not denying that those dates are accurate.
Do you think that's reasonable in hindsight?
I think our requests to the court were reasonable, yes.
And you think it's reasonable that President Trump had to be in New York on the 1st, 2nd, and 4th, and then travel to Florida on the 3rd?
I think our requests were reasonable, yes.
So just to clarify, what kind of hearing was it? You said a hearing in the Southern District of Florida on April 3rd? Is there any more information about what kind of hearing it was? Was it just a status conference or something different?
As we understand it, President Trump had to be there. I think, if it's a status conference, I'm sure the judge would. We only have about
That's so you can move on.
minutes left, so we'll-
I didn't mean to
Yeah.
delay things. No, you can keep going.
Steve,
Okay.
Mr. Smith, can I just ask a few questions? When you were hired in November of '22, how did the department educate you about the predications for the investigation? What evidence had been collected?
I got educated on the cases by debriefing with the people who were leading the investigations.
And in terms of when that full autonomy was handed over, how quickly did that happen?
Sure. So I was appointed on November 18th, that Friday. And time difference, right, because I'm in The Hague.
Yep.
I requested that evening that someone get on a plane to come over and debrief me immediately.
Remember who that was?
It was J.P. Cooney was the first person who came over.
He came alone?
I believe he did, in my recollection right now, and I think he got there, maybe it was till, I can't remember if it was Saturday or Sunday, but he got there Sunday and began giving me a summary of the work.
And was that just digital case files? Was it hard copies?
It was oral.
All oral?
He came over to debrief me orally, yes.
When was the first time you started to look at some of the materials? Only reason I'm asking,
Yeah.
DOJ alum, when I got an investigative memo, I
Yeah.
would start going through and looking through the materials myself.
I did that.
Yep.
Having difficulty remembering exactly when that happened, but I certainly did that.
And
It was early on.
in terms of the way you approach this, did you go through and kind of review the predication for all of the investigative steps that have been taken to that point?
Review the predication for all the
So whether it was, pen registers, search warrants, did you review all of that, or were you just looking at kind of the summaries of the information, the evidence that had been collected?
I think I was looking at kind of the overall, where the investigation was at this point in time.
Okay. In terms of the staff decisions that you made, how soon did you start staffing up your office?
Well, the office was primarily staffed with people who had already been on the investigations. The majority, I think, were people who had already been on the investigations, and so there was a period of time shortly after I appointed where we had to determine, they had to determine if they were going to stay on the investigation.
Did you ultimately make that decision?
Yes.
Okay. So did you go and meet with every one of those individuals?
I was still in The Hague at that point in time, and so J.P. Cooney had those meetings.
In regards to the law enforcement officers, did you have any say in which agents worked for this investigation?
The squads that worked on these investigations were the same squads that were already working on the investigations when I took them over.
Did you amend those, the personnel at all?
The FBI,
Yeah,
I don't recall doing that.
okay. And then just to follow up on what he said, was there ever any contact between you or any of your team with some of those other prosecutorial offices, whether it be DA, AGs, for the purposes of evidence sharing, information sharing?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I don't have a recollection of that.
But was there a policy, as the boss of the office, did you have a policy with that? If someone had done that, would they have had to report it up the chain to you?
Yeah, if someone had said, I want to call Fonnie Willis and have a conversation and get evidence from them, I would expect no one would do that unless I said it was all right.
And in your recollection, that never happened?
I don't have a recollection of that. As I said, I just want to be as clear as I can. I don't have a great recollection of specifics with different Attorney General's offices, but my recollection is we did get reached out to by offices. I'm thinking of one letter I do recall. May have been, yeah.
Other officers reached out to you?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I recall.
Yeah.
And so there may have been interactions as that result. As I sit here, I don't recall asking
You
them.
initiated it?
Or asking them for evidence, but again, I think, as I directed, I think the people who are the team leaders on those cases and JP Cooney might have a closer recollection of that.
But your memory is there was no outreach that you had to approve or sign off on?
Outreach that I did sign off on, I don't recall anything like that.
And who did the letter come from? Again, just refresh my memory. So you got one letter?
Only one I remember is I remember we got a letter from the Attorney General in, I believe it was New Mexico. That's my recollection.
Okay. Anyone else in the Justice Department, just again to circle back, you talked about the series of conversations you had with Mr. Miller, the KDAG. Anyone else in the Justice Department you talked with prior to Mr. Garland offering you the position of Special Counsel?